Good evening. Is this on? Is it on? Is it on? Good evening. So I'll call this meeting to order.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Ms. Thomas, roll call, please.
Dr. Bellamy,
Here.
Ms. Hill,
Here.
Ms. Walker,
Present.
Mr. Signer,
Here.
Ms. Galvin.
Here.
Mayor Walker, I would like to request that we have a moment of silence for the latest white supremacy attacks. Please.
All right, a moment of silence, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, Councilor Galvin
you.
wanted to.
Yes, Mayor Walker, I would like to have a moment of silence for Kareem Wood. Ms. Wood died July 21 at her home in Kent Store, Fluvanna County, after a long illness. She led Virginia through efforts to interpret Virginia Indian history and cultures accurately, sensitively, and accessibly, and she helped her own tribe, the Monacan Indian Nation, receive federal recognition. She worked to increase the indigenous visibility at public events, and she actually was the person who offered the blessing to open UVA's bicentennial celebration in 2017. So I ask for a moment of silence to remember her. Her memorial service was on the day of our retreat.
All right, could we have a moment of silence for Ms. Woods, please? All right, thank you. Are there any announcements? No announcements? All right, we have a couple proclamations.
Okay, I guess I'll start at this end. We have a resolution in support of ratification by Virginia of the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution. Whereas equality under the law is a fundamental value of Americans and the people of the city of Charlottesville, and whereas the United States Constitution does not explicitly guarantee equal rights and equal protection for the sexes, and the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution and state constitutional statements of equality generally do not provide the strict scrutiny for sex-based classifications that is provided for classifications based on race, religion, and national origin. And whereas state laws are not uniform and federal laws are not comprehensive, legislation can be repealed, and the Supreme Court may invalidate legislation or retreat from its own precedent. And whereas the people of the United States continue to experience the negative effects of lack of political parity between men and women, workplace discrimination, healthcare inequities, disparate rates of poverty, rape, and domestic violence assaults, and whereas the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA, provides that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, and the amendment would help ensure women and men have the same constitutional protections. And whereas the ERA was passed by Congress in 1972 and has been ratified by 37 states, the most recent being Nevada in 2017 and Illinois in 2018, requiring just one more state to ratify to satisfy the constitutional requirement that an amendment be ratified by 3/4 of the state to become valid. And whereas the time limit for the ERA appears only in the preamble, and Congress presently is considering a bill that removes the time limit for ratification of the ERA, and whereas for 48 years the Virginia State Constitution has sought to protect Virginians from discrimination by the Commonwealth on the basis of sex, and whereas the City of Charlottesville enforces principles of fair treatment in accordance with the Charlottesville Human Rights Ordinance, Article 15 of the City Code, which prohibits gender discrimination, now therefore be resolved that the City of Charlottesville supports the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, And be it further resolved that the City Council of Charlottesville urges the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Virginia to ratify the ERA to the United States Constitution as proposed by Congress on March 22nd, 1972, during the 2020 legislative session. Signed and sealed this 5th day of August 2019 by Mayor Nakia Walker. Is there anyone here to accept this proclamation?
First, I would like to thank the council for your support ever since Mayor Charles Barber in, I think, 1976. You have supported women's equality, and that is a very significant thing because we don't have it in this country, but we have our best chance yet. We've had it 6 times through the Virginia legislature for the Senate, and last year we came within 1 vote in the House. And if this election brings in more legislators who are equality-minded, then we will put women, and the entire country is looking at us, we will put women in the U.S. Constitution with more than just the vote and not be discriminated against and be able to have equal pay and work on a lot of other things. And for that, I thank you very much for your support, and I am very excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Walker, this is a proclamation in support of Welcoming Week, which is from September 13th to the 22nd, 2019. Whereas Charlottesville is a community that strives to welcome people from all backgrounds and cultures, and whereas the Charlottesville City Council is committed to respecting the dignity of each person and opposes discrimination of any kind, and whereas the energy, creativity, and traditions that immigrants and refugees bring to our community have enhanced our quality of life and economy and have enriched our understanding of other cultures, and whereas the annual Welcoming Week events help our residents appreciate the many contributions of our immigrants and refugees, be it resolved that the Charlottesville City Council strongly supports those residents in our community who've come here from other countries. And be it further resolved that the Charlottesville City Council proclaims September 13th to the 22nd, 2019 as Welcoming Week and calls on our residents to attend the Welcoming Week events in order to support and celebrate the immigrants and refugees who now call Charlottesville their home. Now, therefore, Nakia Walker, the mayor of Charlottesville, does hereby proclaim September 13th to 22nd, 2019 as Welcoming Week and calls on our residents to attend these events in support and celebration of the immigrants and refugees for whom we're their home. Signed and sealed the 5th day of August. Is there anybody here to receive this?
Is Russ Linden here?
Oh, great.
Welcoming Week is a joyous time, and we're very excited about it. Having said that, it's so ironic and sad and poignant that here we are just 48 hours since somebody drove several hundred miles to El Paso to kill people because they were from some other country. So it just reminds all of us that this is an issue that we all have to take seriously, which I know the council does. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, that's it for proclamations, all right. And next, we're moving to the consent agenda. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on an item related to an item on the consent agenda?
I would like something removed from the consent agenda. Should I speak now, or
You can
I have
come
a
up.
general speaking slot?
You can, if it's
Okay.
about the consent agenda, then you can.
It is, okay. So we'd like item K removed from the consent agenda. I'm Kat Mabry from Charlottesville, and I'm speaking on behalf of Indivisible Charlottesville, and would like to address the proposed amendment to Chapter 18, Article 3 of the Code of the City of Charlottesville. Indivisible Charlottesville is one of thousands of indivisible groups around the country. We're dedicated to defeating the Trump agenda by empowering people in our community to be engaged participants in our democracy. We've worked in collaboration with many other grassroots organizations in Charlottesville and beyond to hold our elected officials accountable by holding public demonstrations on issues of local, state, and national importance. The proposed amendment to the city code would make much of the work that we and other organizations in this city are doing impossible by imposing permitting and insurance requirements for demonstrations that grassroots organizations cannot possibly meet. These requirements are so burdensome that demonstrations in response to events like the white supremacist shooting in Texas this past weekend would be prohibited. And I'm just departing from my comments for a minute. Moms Demand, many of you know Moms Demand, the organization held a meeting. A lot of people felt a lot of grief and anger. And so there was a almost spontaneous group of people that met at Preston and McIntyre just yesterday in response to that shooting. That would have been impossible if this would have been in place. So to continue. As such, the amended ordinance is clearly unconstitutional, and any attempt by the city to enforce it would result in unnecessary and expensive lawsuit that the city would lose. Moreover, this amendment would do nothing to make our city safer. So long as the state of Virginia, refuses to permit cities to combat the threat of armed fascists in our streets, the ordinance can only serve to silence free expression without reducing the risk of violence like we saw 2 years ago. We urge you to reject this poorly considered ordinance and protect this city's commitment to free speech and a politically engaged community. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Thanks so much. And I have copies of this.
And so the ordinance is already in place. It's being modified, and that's what's on the current agenda, just those modifications. And I heard everything else you said, but yeah.
But my understanding was that if it was in the consent agenda, it couldn't, it was just in this big blob, and it couldn't be, it needed to be taken out of the consent agenda to have a separate discussion and vote. Is that not true?
So by now, council is going to vote. We've already had discussions on it. It was already on another agenda previously.
It was in the consent agenda, and it still looks like it's in the consent agenda. It's item
So,
K
John,
in the
do you wanna-
consent agenda. Sure. So I understood from last time it was going to be taken out of the consent agenda, but this agenda still has it in the consent agenda.
It was removed from the consent agenda last week, and
But it's still-
then it moved forward for this week, yes. But it was pulled out, it was just voted on separately, or it was pulled separately to be discussed?
Okay, so it's confusing because it's still listed in the consent.
Because it has to go through it twice, 2 different readings.
So
So
what
there's
will
not like a
happen?
public discussion at this point. But that's why we ask if people want to speak on the matter before we vote on the consent agenda. Okay?
So, okay.
Mr.
so
Blair, I was
what-
wondering, could you just clarify, because spontaneous demonstrations are still permitted in the city?
They are, under the special event regulations.
So up to
And-
within a certain number of days of something that would prompt a spontaneous demonstration?
Right, within 48 hours of I believe it's called a newsworthy occurrence.
That's the current regulation.
Correct.
And it will be in the future?
Okay, so my understanding was that the new regulation changes that, though.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
And the insurance requirement can be waived.
The insurance requirement
So,
can
but don't
be
you have
waived
to
as well.
apply to have the insurance requirement be waived,
For a
though?
It's just a $25 fee,
But
paid for
Right.
Parks and Recreation.
in terms of the spontaneous demonstration, could you just clarify
the
what's
insurance.
required for that?
The insurance requirement can be waived for that as well.
Right.
So if something happens on a Saturday and you want to protest on Sunday, who do you apply to?
You don't need to apply. It falls as a spontaneous demonstration within 48 hours of an event.
And you don't need to apply for the insurance waiver and all that. I just want to be clear that, any little, you think of them as small bureaucratic hurdles, but anything in the way of this can be difficult for
Yes.
small organizations. A $25 fee can be difficult for really small organizations to pull something off. So
All right.
I've said my piece, so.
Thank you.
Molly Calder, city resident. I have some serious concerns about this amendment to the special events permitting. It redefines an event as any demonstration, rally, protest, counter-protest, picket, or other similar public assembly conducted on public property at which one or more individuals express their First Amendment rights. This is so vague as to encompass literally everything, and it includes a prohibition on prohibited items for permitted or non-permitted events. So an event is one person exercising their First Amendment right, and you can't have certain prohibited items. If you're doing that, that effectively bans those items within city limits. So give me your glass water bottle, you can't have that anymore. Like, there are items that we all have on our person here in this room that would be illegal under this ordinance. When you write a law this vague and then tell us, no, it's okay, we'll enforce it in a way that makes sense, we'll enforce it in a way that makes fair, you put the power in the hands of the police to decide when it gets enforced. I talked to John Blair at the last meeting when this was on the agenda, and he said, my friend Gudrun, who's 12 years old, led a school climate trike. They didn't get a permit. They're kids. Would you enforce civil penalties against those kids? And he said, no, we wouldn't enforce it against the kids. Which right there is an admission that this will not be enforced equally, that people's individual judgment will get used in deciding when it gets enforced, and you know who that hurts. You know who that gets enforced against. You have to write an ordinance that is clear so that it can be enforced fairly. You cannot put the power and the judgment in the hands of the police to decide what demonstrations are legal.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Fogel. I live on Spruce Street in Belmont. I want to support what Molly just said. The previous ordinance said an event was defined as the conduct of which has the effect, intent, or propensity to draw a crowd of onlookers. Now it is one person exercising their free speech rights. If I say an offensive word to a police officer, I'm exercising my free speech rights. If I do that at the time that I'm drinking a bottle of Coca-Cola, I'm guilty. Now, there have been several demonstrations here which were clearly required permits for, and the city did nothing about. So that if you believe, and apparently you all do, that the women who organized the demonstration at the Free Speech Wall in support of choice should be prosecuted, vote for this ordinance. If you think the young people who came out of school to protest the lack of action on climate should be prosecuted, vote for this ordinance, because that's what you're doing. Now, I know you're going to have some problems enforcing this ordinance for precisely the same reason Molly said. You haven't been enforcing it. You don't even know what it means. How many of you can actually define some of the items that are in here? And I'll make it easy for you. Does people realize here that it's also an offense to advertise before a permit is issued? So that those of you who may have advertised for your events, not only are guilty of not getting a permit, you're also guilty of having advertised in advance. We cannot tolerate a limited ordinance like this. And of course, I think people will be interested that the ordinance defines person to include corporation. That's a wonderful idea, and one we should suggest the Supreme Court take up so that we can have everything clear and that corporations can have the same rights that the rest of us have. That's very important. So I will be happy to challenge the ordinance, to be by myself, drink a bottle of Coca-Cola, and express my opinion. And let's see whether you're going to come and arrest me for that, okay? I'll even make it easy. I will call the police department and ask them when is a convenient time for me to do that so they can be there, okay? And we can maybe resolve it in certain respects in that way. Secondly, I want to mention about your request for 50% additional funding for the DMC. Do any of you know what that 50% is for? Certainly can't glean it from the memo that was presented to you. We need more money because we need to do more studies. But the most ridiculous thing I've heard is that the DMC consultant is not studying the police department. Only other aspects of the criminal justice system. Now, why would they want to study the police department? Perhaps because it's the place where most people come into contact with the criminal justice system. That would argue for studying the police department. We also have 6 years of statistics suggesting that there's a problem with enforcement of the law here in Virginia, in Charlottesville, when it comes to black people. Now, you may not believe that it's proven by those statistics, but those statistics certainly should raise the hair on the back of your neck, and you should demand that we get answers to why it is they need the 50,000, why they're not including the police department in it, because frankly, it'll be a joke if it doesn't include the police department.
Thank you.
Good evening, Don Gathers.
Good evening.
How are you, brother? Maybe, and I too am in opposition of Ordinance K, so maybe because we had so many people who weren't here last week or last month, Mr. Blair, if you can explain what the ordinance reads now and what the amendment reads, because, I mean, this doesn't tell us anything as to what it is. That could clarify some things. And also make it easier going forward so that we know what the new seated council in January should be operating under.
Certainly. Do you want to do it?
You mean the amendments?
Right, just to kind of go over
Closely,
the
okay.
things that were addressed? Is that?
Fine.
Okay. Well, to speak to some of the concerns tonight, I know Ms. Conger asked sort of where the definition of demonstration came from. You can take a look at 36 Code of Federal Regulation 2.51. The National Park Service does use the following definition. The term demonstration includes demonstrations, picketing, speech-making, marching, holding vigils or religious services, and all other like forms of conduct that involve the communication or expression of views or grievances engaged in by one or more persons, the conduct of which is reasonably likely to attract a crowd of onlookers. Concerning, Mr. Gathers was asking to maybe go over some of the changes and how the ordinance is being changed. Just to start at a very high level, we have we're calling these events, but there are special events, which are things more like pageants or sports contests that occur not so much as a First Amendment expression. And then we also have demonstrations. And these are the two type of events that are now being defined in the amendments. Concerning the actual changes to the ordinance itself, I know there's been a lot of talk about permits. Actually, the permit section itself is, there have been a few minor changes, but really what's being changed more than anything is changing right now, Section 18-25 of the City Code makes it a Class 4 misdemeanor to sponsor, hold, or conduct an event for which a permit is required without first obtaining a permit. So it's a criminal offense as the ordinance currently stands. The proposed amendment in 18-23 makes it a civil penalty instead of a Class 4 misdemeanor. Sure.
I propose as a crime.
Sure. And absolutely, we'll get there. But again, when we talk about the permit requirements, actually those events are no longer going to be Class 4 misdemeanors. Instead, they're coming into civil penalties. I know during the last council meeting, Ms. Conger had asked me about this and as it relates to children. Both the current ordinance as well as the proposed amendment it's now a civil penalty to advertise, promote, or conduct an event for which a permit is required without first obtaining a permit. It is fair to say, obviously, as with most ordinances, there is some level of discretion. But concerning advertising, promoting, or conducting the event, a child that was just happened to be there during the event, I don't believe they're advertising, promoting, or conducting the event. I think the conducting the event would be more about who would be leading the event.
Okay.
Certainly. Certainly. Concerning the question about, again, Mr. Gathers, prohibition on carrying or possessing specified items. Right now, The ordinance itself talks about if you are, and let me get this, holding, carrying, displaying, or using any prohibited item as defined herein within an area where an event is taking place with a permit, that right now, as the ordinance is currently written, is a violation. This proposed ordinance says it shall be unlawful for any person to carry or possess any of the following items or articles while attending or participating in an event. Difference being, currently, if you're in the area where the event is taking place and you have one of the prohibited items, currently, as the ordinance is written, that would be a criminal offense. The ordinance change says you have to be attending or participating in the event.
How do you define participation? Because an event isn't going to attract onlookers, so is looking participating?
Well, I think to answer your question, I think if there's an event being held and somebody came up and started to participate in the event
Okay.
between,
So, have you
Between-
finished
I'm answering
highlighting?
the question.
Yeah,
right.
okay. Excuse me, can we, if you haven't been up and you would like to come up and ask a question related to an item on the consent agenda?
Right.
About the consent agenda?
About this situation, I can throw light on this and clarify it.
You can come up to the mic.
Before he does,
No, Don, there,
okay, but you allow other follow-up.
and I'm sorry for not stopping it in advance, so I'm stopping it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Johnny Hall, and Mr. Brian Daly of Parks and Recreation has a form that you must fill out so that everything can be anticipated as to what a person would have to present at a rally or some kind of an event before the public and a gathering. So there would be no problem understanding exactly what items are going to be presented, and the participant that's going to do it. That information is put out before so that there's no surprise, and Mr. Daly and his staff review that information, and I'm sure they could share it with Mr. Blair here. There you go.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak on it?
Council, I think there's a lot of uncertainty about this particular cleanup for your code, because we do see throughout this country there's a lot of attempt to squelch free speech for everybody. And I really think that you need to, if Mr. Blair, I'm sitting there too, and if Mr. Blair can't demonstrate to me what participation is it, I'm just watching, people beat up on each other, or I'm in there standing face to face with somebody. I mean, I don't understand where the levels, the gray areas of participation are. And I really think that, whether you pass this ordinance tonight on your consent agenda or bring it back, it's not going to make any difference. It didn't make any difference to the people of Hong Kong about a permit. It didn't make any difference for the people of Paris about a permit. Doesn't make any difference for people at Standing Rock for a permit. Doesn't hopefully make any difference to the people in Hawaii about a permit. And sure as hell doesn't make any difference to the people of Puerto Rico about a permit. So I really don't think if it comes to demonstrations about things that are happening that we don't like with our government, that we're going to wait 48 hours, 36 hours, 72 hours for a flipping piece of paper.
Okay. Thank you. No, Mr. Hall, no. You have to, no, you have already used your time.
Yes.
No, you have used your time. Could you please have a seat? Could you please have a seat? You have already used your time.
By ringing the Liberty
You have
Bell,
already
and I
used your time.
had Mr. Wheeler
Would you
here
please have a seat,
allow me
please?
Mr. Hall.
Would you have a
appear
seat?
at the fire station.
I just
the Ridge
had
Street
Mr.
Fire
Gathers
Station,
not
and
come
I
up.
filled out a form for Brian Daly.
Could you
Cost me
have a seat,
25
please? They heard you before.
It
You
didn't
have
cost- I
already
did it for
used your
free.
3 minutes.
Yo, sit
allowed
down,
to do it.
man. What are you doing? Sit down.
All right.
It's as clear as that.
Nah, what are you doing?
That's the answer.
All right,
She talk like.
all right, so in terms of, the consent, are you not?
I did have one last.
Okay.
I did have one last clarification. In the insurance requirement in 18-24. Certainly. In the insurance requirement in section -18-24 of the city code, we aren't proposing any changes from the current ordinance. So there would not be any change to the current requirements that are already in place.
Thank you. All right, so, are there any questions from okay. Ms. Thomas, could you read the consent agenda, please?
Consent agenda. Can you hear me? 1A, minutes, May 20th regular meeting, June 3rd regular meeting, June 6th joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors. B, appropriation, Highway Safety Improvement Program, appropriation of funds for pedestrian connections within Hillcrest Birdwood neighborhood, $708,932, second of two readings. C, appropriation, Virginia Juvenile Community Crime Control Act grant, $452,704, first of two readings. D, appropriation, study of disproportionate minority contact in the adult criminal justice system, $55,400, second of two readings. E, appropriation, Charlottesville Student Victim Outreach Program, Department of Criminal Justice Services Victim of Crimes Act grant, $245,428, second of two readings. F, appropriation, Virginia Department of Transportation grants for Water Street Trail, $115,257, second of two readings. G, appropriation, Virginia Department of Transportation primary extension paving project funds, $633,442, first of two readings. Item H has a correction. It was posted as an appropriation, and it is a resolution. Welcoming Greater Charlottesville funding request, $4,100, first of one reading. I, appropriation, Thomas Jefferson Area Crisis Intervention Team training grant, $20,708, first of two readings. J, appropriation, moving from foster care to adulthood rental assistance grant, $300,000, first of two readings. K, ordinance, amending and reenacting City Code Chapter 18, Article 3, special events, second of two readings. L, ordinance, renewing Lumos Networks Incorporated telecommunications franchise, second of two readings. M, ordinance, 750 Hinton Avenue rezoning, second of two readings. N, ordinance, amending and reenacting City Code Chapter 11, Article 4, Director of Finance, first of two readings.
Okay. So council, I would like to pull items K and M to discuss immediately after the initial, the vote on the other consent agenda items.
Second.
Do we need to do a formal vote for that? Okay,
No, I think
that's fine, okay. And so is there a motion for items A through J, L, and M?
So
N,
moved.
L and N,
So moved.
okay.
Second.
And just quickly, I did have some, I'm going to vote for the appropriation now resolution from Welcoming Greater Charlottesville, but I did have some questions about the methods of advertising and if that was the best way to reach this group, especially the, traditional media sources for the, I think it was $1,800. I don't have it up in front of me, so, but hopefully you'll assess that this year if it works well, or think about another, way to reach the groups that you're thinking about. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, please vote. All right, that carries 5-0. All right, so next up, we have item K. Are there any further questions or comments? All right. Oh, okay.
On the same thing?
It's just for council.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Booker.
Just to address Mr. Fogel, it certainly wouldn't, I mean, the council can certainly, right now, it's stating one or more individuals. Certainly, you could change if somebody wanted to amend to two or more in terms of the definition of event as well.
So, thank you, Mr. Blair.
Sure.
And the work you put into this for me. I think some of the argument that we've heard from some of the members of the public tonight, it makes a great deal of sense. So specifically, from what we heard from Molly, and I will say personally, I didn't quite think about it in that capacity. So what is the balance in regards to, as she's describing? Obviously, we put a lot of these rules in place based off of what's transpired in our community in times before. However, I think her example specifically of the kids, because my wife and I were out that day when they were marching on the mall, and I mean there was maybe 50 of them, and it wasn't necessarily an event that led them to doing something that was kind of spontaneous. And by this rule, they would, I mean technically, if the rule is enforced, they could be locked up. So where is the balance in that regards? I'm wondering, is this something that we maybe need to table so that we can get more? Oh, okay. Is it something that we need to table and find a happy medium? All right. That's all right. I mean, I know you don't make the voting decision. I'm just saying.
Sure.
Because go ahead, Mayor Walker. Sorry.
No, I think you were just saying the
Okay.
number, right?
Right,
there.
that's one thing. I mean, the council is free if it wishes to amend. Now, right now, again, the current ordinance talks about, you know, in terms of what is a criminal penalty, and that's sponsoring, holding, or conducting an event for which a permit is required. And in terms of the prohibition on the prohibited items.
Right.
Currently, that is holding, carrying, displaying, or using any prohibited item as defined herein within an area where an event is taking place with a permit.
Right.
And I'm happy if the council wishes, we can come back on August the 19th. Your question is more kind of following up on what is advertising, promoting, or conducting an event?
Yeah, that, and I mean, to Mr. Fogel's point, who he articulates it in a very nice way sometimes, but I do think his point is taken to a certain extent. If he and two other persons were to come out, I mean, is that an offense? And I know you said it's civil,
right?
And which is not necessarily a criminal offense, but I do think that there's merit there. So I wonder if we could table, one thing that I'm interested in, just to be clear, if we could table this for some time, and maybe could we have a meeting with some of our community members to see where the happy medium is? Because I don't want it to feel like a top-down approach of sorts.
Sure.
If my colleagues are open to it. I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Blair. I'm just...
Couple things to that point. I did meet with Mr. Fogel about this, but happy to meet again. One thing we can look at in terms of the definition of event, if the council wishes, is, again, the National Park Service talks about engaged by one or more persons, the conduct of which is reasonably likely to attract a crowd or onlookers.
Right.
And we can look at adding that to the definition of event.
Right. So I do, and I understand wholeheartedly. I do agree, though, that it's rather vague, and because of what's transpired here specifically, I think using definitions per se from the National Park Service. Like, we are going to have to develop this to make it fit specifically for us, because we're a very unique city, and I think these are very unique situations and unique times, and I think that we could have more community buy-in if we were to discuss this maybe with a few more people, and then we can say that there was a holistic approach. I understand you met with Mr. Fogel, and maybe with a couple other community members, so that we could clearly move forward together. Because the last thing I want is for this to continue to bring about heartburn in someone, get arrested or get a civil suit for something that's trivial. Because we don't know how other police officers or how other individuals may enforce this moving forward. So that's my request from council.
But I guess the question I have is, if we move in this direction even now, even if it's just for 2 weeks, just to ensure that, like right now he is saying it's a criminal. There's a different, it's getting better and in favor of the folks that are attending. So we're trying to take.
Right now it is a criminal offense.
So de-escalate it a bit, like make it less of an offense.
Civil.
Right, and so I'm saying that, any of these ordinances we can always go back to. I'm just saying that right now, do we want to take this one step forward with what we have written here with a commitment that we can revisit it. But I'm seeing that what way it's written right now and what's actually active seems more stringent in some areas than where we're looking to go just tonight. And I'm open to talking about it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And even as I've just been reading it, I do think that there are still some things that even if we pass it tonight, could present a great deal of unnecessary heartburn for community members, because there's just too much vagueness.
But what she's
and
saying,
being
Wes,
left
is
up
that
to
there's something
interpretation.
already in place, all the stuff that's
Right.
not been modified.
Understood.
So,
And we, okay.
And one other option would be to pass it tonight, but not enact, the things that I've talked about tonight that, number one, are decriminalizing, and also in terms of the prohibited items, also I think they are less strict than current. You could, in effect, move tonight to approve sections 18-23.
So if we were
Through
to,
1827, and then we can work on the definition section, 1822.
And just for
That seems to
clarification.
be where people are having a lot of,
well, not only that, I think with section 1823 on
Right.
section D, specifically when it discusses the amount of the fine, the following conduct is declared
Right.
to be unlawful, and any person who engages in such conduct shall be subject to a civil penalty of up to $500.
correct.
We have that kind of monetary amount.
Right.
That could be, some will say this is only civil, but shoot, that could be like a life-changing event for some.
No disagreement, but right now, it as the ordinance currently
Right.
stands, it's a criminal
Right.
penalty.
Well, again, my request is that we table, but I understand wholeheartedly if my colleagues choose not to do so. I'm just letting you guys know kind of where I stand. And there's no disrespect, Mr.
Sure,
Brown. I know you
no.
put a ton of work into it. I just think there's a couple other things that we could
And
do.
again,
But if you guys want to move forward and proceed, I understand.
I just want to make it clear to my own mind. So what's on the table right now is whether we pass this ordinance as written before us.
The amendment.
Whether we have a second option, which is to have the existing ordinance on the books, but amend it so that section 8.23 to 18.27 is approved. And then the third option is to table it. I just want to make sure I know what my choices
well,
are.
and there could be a fourth option, and it says effective date. This ordinance shall become effective upon adoption by city council. You can always put your effective date later, say 3 or 4 months later, say it's adopted, and in the meantime, we can work on the definitions.
but I guess
But-
my question for this would be, I haven't voted on any variation of this.
Right.
And I'm just thinking, even if we convened a group, the likelihood that there would be a consensus among what the outcome of this is highly unlikely.
Well, understanding that, but I'd also say that we could, again, maybe the council could look at passing, again, the more lenient provisions, right? The civil penalties instead of criminal, as well as the prohibited
But all of the modifications were more lenient than what's currently
Well, I think there's a question about
the one or more
the definition, right?
definition.
So the council could enact sections, the amendments to 18-23 through 1827, and we could bring back definitions.
Well, Mayor Walker, just getting back to some of the things that we discussed at our retreat, and that one idea that in our new protocols that we were talking about is that counselors should not hesitate to say when they need more time, and if they have questions and are somewhat confused. After tonight's discussion, I don't have clarity on what I'm voting on. So I do want to have more time, and I agree with Councilor Bellamy that we should table it to another time. I'm wondering if there should be a work session, because it's much more complicated. But that, I'm willing to have it just come back for another meeting, but I don't feel like I know what I would be voting on tonight with mine changes. And I'm not, and again, to totally respect what you've done, Mr. Blair, I just want to make sure I know exactly these definitions now, exactly what the implications are. And I don't see clarity, and I don't think the community sees clarity right now.
And I would be in favor of, just because I think there are some opportunities to going, in the immediate time, to ensure that we're not putting like criminal consequences on some of these things. And so I would say that I'm comfortable with the 18-23 to 27 and knowing that we're going to table through the definitions.
All right, is there a motion?
It can be a motion.
Is there a motion?
So,
excuse me.
Because this current ordinance is in effect. I think that everyone's forgetting this is just an amendment to something that's already out there and it's already active.
So is there a motion?
I don't know that we have three of anything at this point, so.
So I'd like to make a motion that we table this until the August 19th meeting.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay. We've already had discussion. Is it possible to call the question? Mayor Walker?
That's it. All right, vote. And I'll say again, I mean, I probably would have clicked no for this one too, because I don't think there's going to be any agreement on what the terms are, even if there is a work session. So again, I haven't voted on this. I wasn't going to vote on it favorably today, but the fact that anything that would be enforced that we think that there is going to be agreement on, that is not probably going to happen. So I'll just leave that for my colleagues. Okay, now we're on M. All right, so that's the 750 Hinton Avenue zoning, the second of two readings. And Mr. Akafuna, could you come up? Good evening.
Madam Mayor, councilors.
Good evening.
I'm here to understand there is a question regarding the importance of housing related to the development and also based on staff report, the compliance with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah. Do you have any questions? Mm-hmm. So just wanted clarification on just the importance around development, community, affordable housing specifically.
I think by and large, this particular proposal, the 15 units, the developer is providing 4 units out of the 15 units for affordable housing and also special needs population. The proposal, or the applicant rather, provided analysis of the importance of affordable housing related to the development, and the staff in reviewing that analysis reaffirms the applicant's presentation and statements in the application that the proposal complies with the housing provisions in the comprehensive plan. And it does, because, for instance, the housing section of the comprehensive plan, goal number 3, it talks about growing a city's housing stock for residents of all income levels. The objective, one of the objectives under this particular goal number 3, also indicated the need to continue to work toward the city's housing goal of 15% supported affordable housing by the year 2025. Under the same goal, 3.4, it states encourage creation of new on-site affordable housing as part of the rezoning or residential special use application. And this particular application reflects these goals that I've just mentioned. The other goal, couple of goals, statement in the comprehensive plan that the proposal furthers its interest includes a goal number 4, for which states that the plan should promote an assortment of initiatives to meet the needs of homeowners, renters, and homeless people with varying levels of income. And as indicated earlier, this proposal proposes to set aside 4 out of the 15 units for affordable housing. And in terms of the benefits of this particular project to the city, I'm going to outline a few statistics that will give the City Council some kind of overview of the chronic challenges the city faces in terms of affordable housing. In the year 2000, the home value was $117,000. And in 2017, the same home value rose from $117,000 to $310,000. That's about 116%. And simultaneously, the income is not growing at the same rate with the housing value. And in 2000, the number of households in the city of Charlottesville was 16,838 households. And in 2017, that number rose from 16,838 to 19,915. Now, if you translate that, that's 18% increase. If you translate that into the number of residents, you multiply it by about 2.64, which is the number of households, this household size in the city, and that will give you about 52,000 people in the city of Charlottesville, dating back to 2017. Mm-hmm. Now, between 2017 and 2019, that number may have risen. Mm-hmm. We don't have the accurate information right now from the census or what have you. But that tells you the importance of affordable housing, and to also add to what I'm saying, for the first time or since I've been in Charlottesville, I think this is the first time a faith-based organization is actually stepping up to be part of creation of affordable housing. And I think the city should support this particular effort to encourage other faith-based organizations to participate in terms of providing affordable housing. All in all, this project furthers affordable housing interest in the city of Charlottesville.
Okay.
And it also complies with the comprehensive plan, the housing section of the comprehensive plan.
The current plan. Are there any additional questions?
So just to be very clear for the public and for the record, this rezoning does comply and align with our comprehensive plan goals,
Exactly.
and it furthers our very specific goal to promote affordable housing in the city of Charlottesville.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the rezoning of 750 Hinton Avenue, second reading, of 2 readings.
Second.
All right, please vote. All right. It carries 5-0. All right. So next
the
we have the
longest
city
ovation we got in
manager
here in a long
response to the community matters. Dr. Richardson?
When
Oh,
do you want
you
me to
had-
do that appointment? Should I do
Oh,
that?
go ahead. You can do that now.
This is related to boards and commissions, just really quickly. I want to move for the recommendation of appointing Jay James to the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail Authority Board. This is a joint appointment with the county.
Second.
Thank you. All right, please vote. All right, it carries 5-0. All right, next we have the community, the city manager's response to community matters from the previous meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I only have one community matter to respond to tonight, and that's for Mrs. Chapman pertaining to her ask, and that was, is it possible for us to conduct a CO2 inventory every 2 years? And my answer to that is yes. Currently, we're in the process of implementing a new software program that takes raw data and puts it into a more understandable format. And from that, ultimately our goal is to ensure that, that we do place this data into an interactive dashboard on our website, so folks can go to it and see exactly what we're doing in our reduction of our carbon footprint. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have the community matters. And just keep in mind the 3 minutes per speaker. LaShondra Morseberger? Not here? Okay. Harold Foley?
Who is that? Good afternoon, City Councilor, Charlottesville. I love Charlottesville. All right. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the initial CRB members. Are you here, CRB members? Please stand. Come on, outside. So the CRB members,
I'm on the hallway.
yeah, 2 more right there, Sarah. Good one. Yay! So the CRB members was charged to do something, and they got it done. We, the community, has some concerns regarding the PRCB. What we don't want City Council to do is water down the process. Some things that we hope that City Council can not change is the membership for the new board members, limiting the scope of PRCB and what they can review as far as data, and independence. The CRB, independence from the Charlottesville Police Department regarding the auditor. And finally, but very important, fund the PCRB fully. With that said, I'd like to cede my time, rest of my time to Marissa Turner Harris.
Hello, I'm Marissa Turner Harris. I reside in Garrett, and I'm a part of the People's Coalition. And We need the city council support with the CRB. It's time we hold these police accountable for any and everything. The previous people have done their job and that leg work. Now it's time for you guys to support us, get us the funding that we need, because it's too many children, too many people being killed and not being held responsible by the cops. Because me as a mother, I can't do it. My son does not play with guns since Tamar Rice was killed, and that cop got off. Anytime we live in Charlottesville, us people of color, we are discriminated so badly that I taught my son that if you're pulled over, put your hands up, because you never know which cop you got, a good cop, a bad cop. You have Brackney, who don't do shit, and I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, community life matters, but yeah, I see you at big functions. I don't see you patrolling the neighborhoods, talking to the citizens that you're supposed to be protecting. So it's our time that y'all respect us and y'all help us. Because this CRB, if city council doesn't support it, we don't have anything. And it's back to police that don't do shit.
Thank you. Katie Zhang.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Zhang. I'm a student at the University of Virginia. I'm Shalini. I'm also a student at the University of Virginia, and both of us reside on Jefferson Park Avenue. Okay. So one of the reasons why we both really love Charlottesville is its commitment to sustainability. I remember going to the farmer's market and going to the recycling place, and I was just like, wow, a place that really loves our planet. So I'm so grateful to be here. But something that really surprises me is the continued use of styrofoam. It's everywhere, and that plastic is really harmful. It doesn't degrade, and it really has no place to go. Once styrofoam comes off the factory, it goes straight into landfills, because the recycling plant that I go to doesn't accept it, the one in McIntyre. It does not accept it. It has a sign that says no styrofoam. And so it all goes into the landfill. And once it's in the landfill, it has to stay there for centuries because it does not degrade. And so while it's in the landfill, all it does is leach chemicals into the soil, and also it goes into our waterways and into our ecosystem. It's getting into like our local fauna, it gets into us. And so I think that we have to really take styrofoam seriously as a major health risk to our community.
We believe that the city of Charlottesville should consider establishing a ban or some kind of way of regulating the use of styrofoam food containers, because its continued use, as Katie mentioned, poses a risk in our community and our waterways, our ecosystem. And Charlottesville would not be the first city or locality that would establish this ban. Actually, there have been over 100 different ordinances throughout the United States that have established this ban of polystyrene food containers. Also, the entire state of Maine, just this year, has established that ban. So that goes to show that there are alternatives and that this can happen in Charlottesville. Currently, we're in the process of drafting a policy memo for both local and statewide legislators, summarizing why this ban is so essential for the greater movement of sustainability. Even on the City of Charlottesville's website, it says a sustainable community means to work together within our community to create an attractive, clean area in which to live and to protect the natural resources upon which all life is dependent. And our initiative aligns perfectly with this goal. We hope that we can work together to address this issue of outstanding styrofoam waste accumulation and build a cleaner and safer Charlottesville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Blair, can you just confirm, I know that plastic bags has come up again and again, but this is something that we cannot do as a locality without support from the state?
Correct, but it is worth noting, the legislative committee, Councilor Galvin and Dr. Bellamy, that again, you can place that on this year's legislative agenda. And perhaps if the elections go a different way this November, there might be more receptivity in Richmond.
Have we set up a time to meet?
I believe Ms. Robertson is working on that. She met with Mr. Blunt last week.
Okay, great.
But just to explain to students in Virginia, there's something called Dillon's Rule that prevents a city or a county from doing anything that the state has not passed a law to allow them to do. So we're not allowed even to regulate plastic bags in Charlottesville because of this very restrictive state rule. So we wouldn't be allowed to regulate styrofoam unless the state passed a law allowing us to do it.
If we approach the state,
Okay.
is the council allowed to?
So that's another
Yes.
question from the floor. Okay, all right. All right, Louis Newman. Oh, Louis Newman. Paul Long.
Mayor Walker, I'd like to cede my time to Nancy Carpenter.
Ms. Carpenter, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Appreciate that. Thank you for allowing me to come speak this evening. My name is Nancy Carpenter, and I'm a city resident. I'm here as one of many speakers in support of the Citizens Review Board, that you're looking at the bylaws tonight, and hopefully we'll be adopting them as they have been written. You've had a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into these bylaws by a lot of good people here in the community. That this need arose, well, this need has been here for decades, but certainly I think the impetus after August 2017, the community spoke and said, finally we need, to do this and to bring Charlottesville forward to look at how we dismantle. I mean, if we're talking about dismantling ways that people are oppressed in this city, I think your Citizens Review Board for actions that current police employees or future police employees or even past police employees have taken against citizens of this city is paramount to starting that conversation and moving forward beyond what we have experienced in this city for 200 and however long this city's been around, 250 years, however long, 400 years, it doesn't matter, too long, way too long. So I hope that as the discussion goes forward, the presentation goes forward later tonight, that you do a robust decision that will benefit all the citizens of this community. They may not realize it yet. They may want to send you emails about why are you doing this? This is a waste of time and effort and money. But in the long run, it does provide a better quality of life, a better quantity of life if we have the Citizens Review Board. And I just hope that, I'm not going to belabor a lot of points. A lot of good people will bring up some more points, but you have an option to act on the tragedies, the trauma, and the emotions, especially of this week. I thought that I was, getting over some emotions, but over the weekend, I'm now feeling the same type of emotions that I felt building up to August 2017, and you have a chance. Don't blow it.
Brandon Morsberger.
Good evening, Charlottesville. Hey, Brandon Morsberger. I have 2 points. One is that the skate park, which is amazing, and I'm very happy it's open and I get to work there, it needs lights. We have some of the infrastructure in place, but there needs to be some funding secured to get lights, because as light wanes during the seasons, teenagers aren't going to have much to do at night. And if we want a clean, safe place for teenagers to go, and if you haven't seen the skate park, public, you should go see it. It's beautiful and amazing, probably a top 20 on the East Coast. That's point one. Point two is that there's a commercial development that is being proposed in my neighborhood, Rose Hill and Amherst Street, a $1.5 million subterranean parking and business park that butts directly up against residential housing. And I thought like the EPA banned subterranean parking, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just in LA. But when you dig a hole and you park a car in it that runs on gas, the oil and everything ends up in the earth. So as an environmentalist, I think that this proposed real estate deal that somebody with all the money is proposing needs to be looked at. And that's the Rose Hill Center, I believe, is what it's called. Anyway, that's my time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Kate Fraley.
Hi, I'm Kate Fraley. I'm a resident of Charlottesville, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the PCRB. Thank you very much to all of you who were a part of it for so long and worked so hard. I'd like to address the comments of Chief of Police Brackney in relation to the CRB in the July 24th article of Seaville by Lisa Provence. I'm glad you were here. And I realize that there may be some things that you said that weren't included in the article. Chief Brackney said she doesn't think a CRB is needed and that she doesn't know why the community thinks one is needed. And I quote, "So this board could really be an expensive board, and I'm asking to solve what problem?" This comment reveals a limited understanding of the long-standing distrust of and unequal policing in Charlottesville. There are many problems that need to be solved. One problem is transparency, and I agree, as the Chief Brackney has produced documents that show disproportionate minority contact and results from citizens' complaints. But without a civilian review board, some people might know of errors or be suspicious of the data the department is providing, especially around complaints. The CRB would help allay suspicion and potentially help with any inaccuracies. The National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement says in its letter to you all, "True independence from the police department allows an oversight body to address a wide range of concerns without any actual or perceived bias and ensures that policing is responsive to the needs of the community." The biggest problem is disproportionate minority contact at all levels. A strong, independent PCRB will have the capability, especially with paid staff, to analyze the data deeply, review complaints, follow responses to complaints, see trends, assess policies, and make recommendations. A strong, independent PCRB can get to the bottom of the root causes of disproportionate minority contact and help fix it. Something must be done about the disparities. This has been a problem well before Chief Brackney's tenure, and I hope it ends during her tenure. It is time for City Council to do something bold to change the outcome. As the Executive Director of the Legal Aid Justice Center said in the letter they sent to you all, it's time for Charlottesville to counter its history of glaring disproportionate policing of Black and brown residents with bold action. The People's Coalition letter said, quote, "The CRB represents the living promise from the city to openly acknowledge the suffering that its institutions have inflicted upon communities of color and to meaningfully address long-standing failures of the Charlottesville Police Department. The city has publicly pledged to listen to what communities of color have to say about how to protect them.
Thank you.
This is Civilian Review Board is your promise."
Thank you. Andrea Massey.
Hi, I'm Andrea Massey, a resident of Charlottesville, and I'm just here to give my support for a strong PCRB, and I'm ceding my time to Luis Ciola.
Hi everyone, my name is Luis Oyola. I'm a county resident, and
I am an organizer with the Legal Aid Justice Center. I'm here to speak on my support for a strong PCRB that is independent and focused on police activity in Charlottesville. I want to speak to one angle that I feel has been relatively unspoken until this point, which is the immigrant rights angle to this board. The Civilian Review Board is there to make sure that the stated goals of the police department and what is said about the police department is what's actually going on. Now, we've heard leadership in the police department and leadership in the city government talk about how they don't want to cooperate with ICE and how they stand against the mass raids. And we even had a resolution just earlier today about standing with the immigrant community. But in my work, I have heard many anecdotes of immigrant residents of the city and immigrant residents of the county or residents of the area who are driving through, either of them, of individual police officers, asking them questions related to their immigrant status or making remarks related to their immigrant status. One of which going so far as saying, when you go to jail, we're going to turn you in to ICE. So, and you know, these are people who, for that exact experience, would never dream of going to the police department directly to make a complaint about it in light of the statements of leadership. So where do these go? Who will determine if there was any policy violation? Who will independently determine if there even is a policy for enforcing this stated non-cooperation with ICE? And who will have the money and resources to do that? It is my standing and the standing of many in this community that it would be a strong and independent police civilian review board who would have the money and the resources to do that if you go by the proposed bylaws. The Human Rights Commission is great for general concerns about the city government, but we really need a committee that is dedicated to the police activity, because as far as the immigrant community is concerned in this area, they are the most dangerous interface between immigrants and the government. So we need to pay very, very specific attention to those concerns and make sure that we're passing the bylaws for a strong and independent police civilian review board. Thank you.
Mr. Luis, Mr. Ariella, I have a question for you briefly. Thanks for those comments. In particular, I know we've spoken it as a council as well as at the ACRJ, the Jail Authority Board, about the city's position specifically about us not dealing with ICE. So to hear that is rather alarming. But I do know that there's always, multiple things that go on and different accounts and so forth. Is it possible, and with Chief Brackney here, is it possible maybe for us to have a further discussion about our police department and specifically how we're interacting with our friends who are here? Because I think it's important for them to know that we support them. And it's my understanding, I've spoken with Chief Brackney about this several times, we don't cooperate with ICE. I mean, she's been very clear about that. I've seen her say that to officers. We're not that kind of police department. So
I think regarding a meeting, that I will have to bring that back to Legal Aid Justice Center.
Okay.
But I mean, I think we'll be happy to bring concerns and ideas for policy changes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the specific to this comment is like to speak to why we need a board to hold that accountability from the leadership down to the beat officers.
Right.
And then another thing that I want to point out, that there's a particular thing here about what's going on between this city and the county together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's like something specific to address tonight about that, but that's just something to put out there, that this isn't just about the city.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean specifically in the immediate, because even tonight, we're supposed to just be listening to the report. Like, we're not passing anything tonight, is for listening. So then you have, at the very minimum, another 2 weeks before we could even potentially vote on bylaws, and it probably won't even be on, because I think that agenda is already packed. So then you're looking at roughly a month before we get to even hear from it. So then that's a month of our friends potentially being exposed to something or having these philosophies. So I'm thinking about how can we facilitate a meeting in the more immediate for us to be able to have some clarity.
I think we can make that happen quickly. I'm just
Okay.
saying that I want to make sure that I'm speaking to the concerns of the community and like what they've been
Right.
telling me, and that I'm being responsive to that. I don't want to just
Gotcha.
agree to a meeting
Right.
now.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Kat at Mayberg, maybe? Okay. Tanisha Hudson?
You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I have a couple things to speak on. So I sent you guys a
Good evening.
request. Hey, how you doing?
I said, good
Hey,
evening.
I thought everybody already said hellos and stuff. We stop it though. I have a couple requests. So I sent you guys a request via email for my Unity Day event that I'm doing downtown Tonsler Park on August the 18th with the lovely help from Charlottesville Unity Days, and I requested some additional funding. And in my request, I also pointed out that there shouldn't be any problem with this funding coming out of the equity fund, being that Charlottesville voted to give $80,000 to marketing for the Downtown Business Association. So I will hope to have an answer for that tonight. Y'all can tell me tonight or let Brian know. However, that's going to work out. That's number one. Number two, when I went to go do my actual meeting for my permit to have my event in Tonsler Park, I noticed how there were all white men in the room. The only woman that was in the room was Michelle Christian, which is a regular because it's just obvious that that's the power structure of Charlottesville, that there's a lot of white men in these high positions, and there's no women in the room to even represent women. So I can only imagine me being somebody not like me, being the type of woman that I am, that would feel intimidated by being in a room full of white men. I mean, the only person of color was Rion from Parks and Rec, and Michelle, and myself, and Damian Banks. But even if, and Tito, I forgot Tito, and then what's the other one named from Transportation? He, what, Asian? Yeah, him. But y'all get my point. Like, we gotta do, that's that Thomas Jefferson effect. We gotta do something about that. Another thing is this hiring process at the city of Charlottesville. I applied for a job just to do it, because y'all know I love catching y'all up, okay? So I applied for a job. Doesn't matter like what the initial request was. I just did it just to do it anyway. But the fact that you could be doing this work for free as an activist in the community, you could be doing some type of work pertaining to housing, for them to tell you that you're not qualified, goes to show that you guys are literally looking for white people, possibly, to come in and do these jobs and then try to help people that they don't even understand. And in order to help somebody like myself that's black, that comes from Charlottesville, that's lived in public housing, you need one of us in the room. And I think you guys get, carried away with thinking that the city in itself, not all of y'all, but y'all get what I'm saying, thinking that people can make conscious decisions for people of color in this city, and we're nowhere in the room when those decisions are being made. And even when you bring us in the room to make those decisions with you all, you're getting the people who basically are sitting on the same level as you. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you pick and choose the right black people to kind of use to get these policies pushed. And then like zoning, like look at Hinton Avenue. Like they got what they wanted, but you guys go and do stuff everywhere else in Charlottesville. And these communities just have to deal with it. You know, but when it's a white community, of course, they come down here, they come deep. It's 30, 40, 50 of them, and they all sign up to speak, and they take the slots for about 2 months to talk on that one subject, and they get what they want.
Thank you.
Do we see the effects that Charlottesville, how y'all do, black people, white people, rich
Thank
people,
you.
poor people?
Thanks.
No, it's okay, I'm done. But anyway, you can let me know.
So Ms. Hudson's request in regards to the additional funds for the Unity Day event, I know that we've had some discussion specifically in regards to whether or not we would be able to assist off-budget cycle requests, quote unquote, but I think this would fall under the Unity Day. And Ms. Green has stated essentially that they've exasperated the funds. I read your email in regards to bringing in the act, and I do think there's some validity there in regards to specifically bringing in acts that will attract specifically African Americans and communities of color, because it's not often in which we have such. I would be open to entertaining such. I wonder, Mr. Blair, would this mean that this is,
So Wes, you would have to, Counselor Bellamy, bring that up during other business.
which is
if
literally
that's
what I
you're
was
gonna-
about to ask Mr. Blair,
Okay.
but thank you, Mayor Walker, for the clarification.
She tired.
So
All
other
right.
business it will be?
All right. John Hall.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Johnny Hall. David Dillhunt asked me to put this out here like this cat bus with a fold-out stop sign. We can do this for our children in our school buses. Why not do it for our adults in our cat buses? Thank you on that. Judge Richard Moore concluded at the recent sentencing of James Fields regarding Fields' character. He said, "I believe he was trying to run over as many people as he could." What then came to my mind was a legal definition of what I believe showed psychotic intent to murder. That term is malice aforethought. I expressed it in a question to Nina Alice Anthony after the long court session outside. I said, "Do you feel, Miss Anthony, that James Field throwing his Dodge Challenger in reverse indicates malice aforethought?" Nina Alice Anthony responded, "I believe," concurred with my judgment. Okay, Joe Platania seemed to be in deep thought regarding this. I later, the next day, met Mr. Platania outside his city hall office. I said, "Remember that James Alex Fields was only 20 years old on 8/12/2017. Please consider him acting as just a deranged soldier. The real puzzle to solve is to answer the question, who gave him his marching orders? James Field is now incarcerated. He can be questioned by some of the best criminal psychologists and psychiatrists and perhaps neurologists our criminal justice system has to offer. Once the head of the snake, i.e. Hitler in his mind, or a neo-Nazi, whoever gave him his marching orders, whatever that leader who was behind him is the one to identify and bring to justice for just monetary remedy of that whole organization that he runs. By his or her organization, for the 7 victims who have been through so much as chosen to testify by our Commonwealth Attorney, Joe Platania's office, the day of sentencing so well done by Judge Richard Moore, I suggest $3 to $7 million per each victim chosen to be heard by Judge Moore. No need to put them through yet another trial. I say, let it be by determination of our city council as counsel is provided them by our illustrious city attorney, John Blair, Esquire. Thank you.
Mary Carey.
I haven't started yet. Y'all cut the light on. Anyway, Mary Curry, city resident. I came up here to talk about one thing, but the CRB today should have been back there when I was the president of Garrett Square / Friendship Court, because the police was running around there kicking in doors and things, and talking about the task force. Oh my God! I used to have to go over there with a metal bat to tell the police they got to get out of Garrett. And then y'all want to push these CRB people around. I mean, when you call for a CRB board and you in there telling them what to say and what to do, it's not a board. It's something that you put up. And Charlottesville is too much doing that stuff. Because every time I walk down that hall down there, trying to go out to Market Street and during the day, and I look in the room, And there's a bunch of people in there in all those meetings, and number of white people. And like Tanisha said, they're mostly men. I grew up with city council with a bunch of white men on city council, turned down Vinegar Hill and everything else in Charlottesville so they could get rich. And nothing has really changed. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And it's about time for a change to come. So when you start talking about the CRB and stuff and the police and all this stuff, you don't need the police to be in control no more. They need to have somebody to control them because they getting out of hand. They getting these new cars and they flying up and down the street. Exactly. And they got the little doom. I think that's going to their heads too. So if the city CRB, you can get that to hold them accountable. I'm not saying all police officers are bad. I'm not saying all of them are good because it's not really no good cop. It's a paid cop that want to go home to his family. So if we can get things going where Charlottesville can be on the same page with the police and the people, what a wonderful world that'll be. Because I've been living in chaos all my life. And I think I'm tired of it now. So I might have to get my melon out again. But I think that right now, Charlottesville is at a point where the whole country is at a point. Everybody's sticking out the chest. And I like to say to Chief Brackney, would you get those policemen some shirts? Because the ones they wearing is too small.
Adrian Dent.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
So my name's Adrian Dent. I live at 104 Todd Avenue, and I'm here to speak about the resolution item regarding 209 Maury Avenue, the comprehensive plan amendment. A month ago, I spoke before you about the rezoning application for this subject property. Your vote to deny rezoning noted the applicant's lack of site plan and your reluctance to engage in piecemeal rezoning. It has been explained to me that amending the land use map subsequent to rezoning is good housekeeping. Since the rezoning application was denied, I find the ongoing discussion of amending the land use map perplexing. Subsequent to your denial of rezoning, the Planning Commission discussed the amendment to the land use map for this property. Despite Commission's vote in favor of the amendment, with 2 clear dissenting voices, almost every commissioner acknowledged that such changes should ideally be made under the guidance of a comprehensive plan. As I stated last month, residents await comprehensively planned increased density. I ask you, in discussing amendments to the land use map, to be led by comprehensive planning. As good housekeepers of the city and stewards of your constituents, you initiated a process to address demands for increased density and affordable housing. The city's RFP demonstrates a commitment to all elements and aspects of planning. Essential components of this effort must be developing a housing strategy, considering infrastructure and adequacy of natural resources, as well as establishing a position on staff to work alongside hired consultants. Staff must be equipped to update zoning in accordance with the new comprehensive plan and to address issues of compliance. In your discussion of this matter, I ask you to clarify your position on current piecemeal attempts to rezone and amend the land use map. I ask that you explicitly renew your commitment to comprehensive planning, including development of a housing strategy, preparations for oversight of rezoning based on the new comprehensive plan, and adequate resources among staff to uphold compliance with the comprehensive plan. Thank you. I'd also like to say that before the meeting, there were 4 youth, I think, from Venable. They were wearing T-shirts, and they were here to speak to extending the schedule for the city pool's Honesty Family Center and Washington Park pool. And their chaperone decided that it was time to leave because there was some language that she felt was inappropriate for them to hear. But I wanted to give a shout out to them wanting to have the schedule extended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Scott.
Hey, Mayor.
Hi.
Council.
Hey, what's up, man?
Larry Scott, Charlottesville, Virginia. Most of you have heard my story before, being a homeowner, Habitat homeowner, and the blessings and what it meant to me and my family. But tonight, I'm here for different reasons, and I've been in my home since 2004. In about 3 years, it'll be paid for. But I want to be a voice tonight for our future Habitat homeowners, and especially 5 that's hopefully will be considered. I understand y'all gonna be deciding on Flint Hill tonight, and I hope that y'all will consider what I'm asking, and that the 5 future homeowners will enjoy the opportunity that I have and the blessing that came along with being a homeowner, and something that they have that they can pass down to their kids, and they can realize that we can own, not just rent all the time, with some help at times. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Katrina Turner.
Katrina Turner. I'm back again about, I'm not even going to call it my son's complaint, because now it's become my complaint, because I've been called a liar by the chief of police. I asked, how did I lie on this officer, and I still haven't gotten that answer. I've asked for an investigation into these complaints that I have filed against the chief of police, because Mike Murphy has exonerated her in these complaints, saying he's seen nothing wrong. In one of the decision letters, he said, I have determined that the police department complied with their policies in an August 17, 2016 letter by offering you a meeting that you elected not to attend without your lawyer present. When I emailed him this response from Mr. Vogel that me and my son wanted a meeting, not me, my son, and Jeff Vogel, I got nothing from Mike Murphy. I have not heard from Mike Murphy. I have not gotten any meetings that I've asked for all these complaints I've filed. I want to know if my complaint against the police chief is the only complaint that's been filed on her. I do want to know if she has any more. If she does, have they been resolved as far as exonerated the way they've been exonerated on my complaint? One of the officers in my complaint, which is Pleasance, his father was then acting chief of police when this happened to my son, but no one will get it through their head that when I say records were changed, that they were changed because his father was in charge when it happened. Literally everybody who has looked at my complaint seen something wrong, but it was explained over by either Chief of Thomas or someone else. Maurice Jones had questions on this. Brian Shiflett had questions on this, but they were all explained down. I'm asking you, Mr. Richardson, if you could help me into looking into this, because there's too many things that are mistakes in here. And with the position of the chief of police, she shouldn't be making this many mistakes. And really quick, there was a comment made that she's really not going to look at what happened before she came here. But in order to fix the present and in order to fix the future, you got to go back and fix what happened in the past. And that is what's going on in this city right here. The past is what needs to be fixed. And I'm asking you if you would sit down with me and look at everything I have. I even have a video recording from Chief Thomas that I'd like for you to sit down and talk to me about. This is This woman has lied on me. Mike Murphy, everybody has just thrown it out the door. The complaint when she did what she did out there, I have how many, 5 or 6 people who saw what she did to me that night. Mike Murphy exonerated her. He did not even look at what the—
Ms. Turner, thank you.
He did not even look at what the investigator did. He said
Ms. Turner,
he just signed
thank you.
it and forgot about it. Okay, thank you.
Colette Blunt.
No, because she said enough. He couldn't answer. No. All I need is, that's all I need.
Colette Blount, Gordonsville, actually.
Good evening.
Gordonsville. I still have a house in the city, though, and I have surveys for you. I am speaking about the Greenleaf Center project. Residents of Kellytown, Mayor Walker, surveyed residents and neighboring community around the proposed Greenleaf Center at the corner of Rose Hill and Amherst. And in reviewing the city ordinances, the city code, I found outdated sections. The charter on the school board, on which I was a member for 8 years, the school board of the city shall consist of 7 members to be appointed by the council, and 2 members to serve for a term of 1 year from July 1, 1948. Under definitions, under the term gender, a word importing the masculine gender only shall extend and be applied to females and to firms, partnerships, and corporations, as well as to males. That language needs to be updated. We are in 2019 now. Vague language. The purpose of the city's commercial districts is to regulate the use of land that are both harmonious with surrounding areas. How do you quantify harmonious? The intent of the B1 regulations is to provide a transitional district between residential areas and other commercial areas of the city. The uses permitted are those which will have only minimal traffic impacts. How do you gauge minimal? I and some community members of Kellytown surveyed over 100 people. As of now, I think there's about 109 surveys. Of that, 87 were against the proposed Greenleaf Center. You have these results there in front of you. And I will hold up a graphic for that to show of the views. In January 2011, you all hosted a planning commission and city council joint planning meeting. The project planner was Nick Rogers. He is no longer here with the city. I will read what he had written. Quote, staff remains concerned with the health clinic above 10,000 square feet at this location. The clinic size creates too great of an impact on traffic and parking at the Rose Hill Amherst intersection, which would cause some spillover of parking into the neighborhood and overly congest this section of Rose Hill Drive with traffic. He had said anywhere of an increase of 300 to 900 cars for this facility. In the 8 years since the Planning Commission's recommendation, traffic has only increased. In the survey, 90% of those surveyed cited cut-through traffic as being a problem. In continuation in this Joint Planning Commission report, quote, a by right clinic below 10,000 square feet would be appropriate for the site, but a clinic with no maximum, is that the time already? What's proposed there now is a 40,000 square foot facility. And I think that this facility, which is zoned as B1, is actually masquerading as a B3, a B2. And for that reason, I think it warrants a public meeting for rezoning. And I want to also question how Planning Commission's decisions can get overridden to that degree to be quadrupled.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Please review the survey.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Senator McGill.
Always an educator. Sir.
Hi, Sina McGill. I just want to encourage a strong CRB. And also, please, if you have a chance, Ms. Myrtle Halchins was here earlier with some students requesting that the pool stayed open. They had a petition with over 400 signatures, but did not feel comfortable in staying due to some things that were going on before council began. So I will make that quick, and I don't need to say any more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Abby Guskin. Did she send that? Ms. Hodgson send that in?
Mayor, Council.
Good evening.
Just wanted to ask all of the community members, anybody here wishing to see a strong CRB, please stand up and show your support now. Thank you very much. I hope that after the presentation this evening, we do have a lot of community support here. And I really hope, since this was asked by the community to gather a council, and they've done the work that is necessary to complete it. And this evening, it's going to be at the end of the evening, which is really sad, because it would have been nice to have everyone hear what they had to say, but there's a lot of people that have left because they got to hear what they wanted and they're gone. So I really, really hope that you encourage the hard work that Sarah, Guillermo, Josh, we have Katrina, we have Gloria, we have Brizia. Please, please, just hear this community out, and we really need your vote on this. Thank you.
All right, we have a slot for one more person. Is there anyone else who would like to speak that didn't sign up?
Well, I signed up, and I got to respond on my email.
Okay, you must have been on the wait list, Ms. Beard.
Oh, I'm on the wait list?
Sorry, I forgot all about that. So you are number 1 on the wait list, so you're all right.
How long,
You can come on, yeah.
Oh. I thought that was gonna be at the end as well as others. I have. I guess everybody can hear me. I'm Gloria Beard, and I'm from the city of Charlottesville. Now, this has come up, John Gaines was here wasn't too long ago about the stoplight at the crossing of 10th and Page. We definitely need a stoplight there, not that caution light. It's really dangerous. I can't even get out, it's 5 o'clock. And the school children in the morning, they have to go across the street to catch the bus. And you know, with that construction getting ready to start up there at the old dairy, I don't know, I think the traffic's gonna be directed down 10th Street then. So we need a stoplight, seriously. I've been there 26 years now, and never had a stoplight. We have that caution light. And, you know, and I don't know if you're all aware, in the winter, they have, you have to call your resident advisor, or whatever you want to call the person, that will help the seniors and the disabled for snow removal. Well, has anybody ever considered maybe in the school system, especially the children at the high risk of quitting school, or to help seniors, and that goes for their PE, like cutting grass? Have y'all heard about that? Mm-hmm. Have you heard, Mayor?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So when I come back here next week, I'm bringing, you know, all the information about that, because it will help the seniors in this town. We are the forgotten people. I mean, I'm a senior. I'll be 70 years old my birthday. And you know, you can't get nobody to cut your grass. If they do come, then they stop coming, and it looks raggedy. And I don't have about 4 people cut my grass since I've been in my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And you know, and then you know, like in the snow this winter, when I called my neighborhood person, they didn't even have anybody to come shovel the snow. Mm-hmm. Now I used to do my own stuff, but I have health issues now, so I don't think anybody's looking into that.
Well, the Dr. Atkins and the school board members are here tonight, so they hear you.
Okay,
listen to us.
so I should go to them as well.
Well, they're here. Yes.
Oh, they
will
hearing
be.
me. Maybe
Yeah.
I can get the. Y'all get my. We got you. Okay. And has anybody thought of a place? And another thing, one more thing. It's a place for seniors to go for entertainment. They got all these beer joints on every corner. Y'all know that. I live on 10th and Page. So if you, I'm just saying, I'm being real, y'all. I like, you know, I love the Lord and I like the church, but I like to socialize as well. And they have
Miss Beard.
Now I'm talking about going to a place for jazz. Did y'all go to the thing at City Space? They had this jazz group when they had the Daughters of Zion. That was the most wonderful
jazz called Cool Lane. That's the name of the group. And this is it's really nice. And we like to have a place to go to. Now, I don't mean, now look, you all, y'all laughing. I'm not talking about drinking. I'm talking about sitting and socializing.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Beard. I love
Well,
you.
have y'all ever thought about having a place for seniors to go? Y'all got everything for the students.
We got a brand new senior center.
Huh?
We have a brand new senior center.
A senior center
A senior center is being built.
for us?
Yes.
Oh, but I ain't heard
Yes,
nothing
ma'am.
about it.
Yes,
I'm talking
ma'am.
about the black folks too.
Yeah. We'll put you in contact with Martha King.
All right, thank you.
Y'all send me some information, because I don't know nothing about it.
All right, do y'all have any comments? All right, so we can come back at 8:35. Maybe longer than that, but. All right. It's not 8:30. 8:35. Yes. And that's Tuesday.